I don't know. I do think that when you read things about the amount of information that people are gathering and the way that people are finding, kind of connections through the internet and through social media. There's a lot of good stuff about that. I'm not one of those people who's like, oh, it's all bad. But there's also some things that definitely are kind of creepy about it. I mean, today in the New York Times, they're talking about profiling voters by putting cookies into computers and figuring out what kind of searches that the voters are doing, and therefore are they going to be more likely to vote Democrat or Republican, and then therefore targeting them in terms of. But I mean, that kind of stuff is cultish in a way to me. There is something kind of cultish about that.
What scares you?
Mice.
Seriously. Not even rats, but.
No, I love rats.
Why? Why mice?
I don't know, they're just small and they're creepy.
What's it like to play this guy who put this guy away, and then he has to come back to that case again? And he has some baggage that he's bringing along with him, too.
Sure
There's a lot of levels to him.
Yeah. Well, I think that when you say levels, one of the things that an adjustment that I had to make coming from movies was that I looked at the pilot and I went, wow, is that all I did? Is that my whole character? But of course it's not my whole character, because I'm used to looking at the movie and going, well, that's my performance. That's the beginning and the middle and the end of it. That's only the beginning. There's a lot of layers that are going to unfold. One of the things that we have in the show, which is really useful in terms of that, is flashback. It's handled in a really cool way. Some episodes have more flashback than others, but the flashbacks are a way to, oftentimes, not to just reveal pieces of story, but in terms of my character, really to reveal pieces of who he is. And the truth is that in between the time, we talk a lot about the time between when Joe Carroll goes into jail and when we meet Ryan Hardy. He's kind of been spinning his wheels, and as horrible as it is that the guy gets out of jail, and as horrible as it is that he starts killing people and is building this cult and the whole thing, a lot of the story is sort of about me coming back to life. I mean, I'm sort of dead. I'm sort of a zombie at the beginning of the show, and that excitement comes back to life. And the truth is that that's a very real thing, I think, in law enforcement. I mean, I talked to FBI agents who really felt the same way, that the highlight of their kind of professional and energized sort of life was when they were tracking, getting close to putting somebody in jail.
Was there any moment in the reading the script for the pilot, was there any one moment that made you go, wow, this is a unique show? Because honestly, watching it, I thought I had it pegged at 5 minutes. I thought I had it pegged at 10 minutes. I thought I had it pegged at every 5 minutes. It takes a different swerve. Is there any moment at which you realized it was really unique?
They're the holy shit moments. That's what I call them. I mean, I love that about them. I mean, I'd say Ice Pick Lady. I mean, that really made my jaw drop. And it does in watching the show too. And I think that I get scripts, maybe 2 days before. I mean, we start shooting tomorrow. We start shooting Tuesday, and I just got the script for the next one. And every time I get it, I'm like, oh, are you kidding me? Oh, I didn't see that coming, And I think that's, I don't want to force, I'm not writing it, so I don't think Kevin wants to force that issue and create that in a way that's not organic, you know what I mean? Because even that would be too much, doing something by rote, you know what I mean? And we're really trying to break that mold of whatever, a procedural or every time you watch the show, this is going to happen, thing. But I do think that's, in a way, a big part of our show, and that certainly does continue in the first 7 episodes. There's a lot of that stuff. We don't just drop that idea in the pilot. It's very much part of the show.
How much Edgar Allan Poe have you been reading?
I've read quite a bit. Yeah, quite a bit. Poe is kind of great because a lot of the stuff that's quoted and used as short stories, and I'm truth be told, not a big reader. I'm just not. That's just not. Reading is not something. It makes me a little crazy. I'm slightly dyslexic, and it's hard. But they're short, you know. They're like, so I have my, I got them all on my iPad, the collection, and it's great because you know, the other day I made reference to the Cask of Amontillado, and I picked up the script. I hadn't read that one, and I made reference to it, and I was like, bam, there it is. You know, now I know what I'm talking about.
How was doing this series maybe affected maybe what you watch on TV? Do you watch like more of those shows on investigation discovery now? Are you like paying attention to maybe some other TV shows that have, you know, the whole crime solving aspect? And also, if you could talk a little bit about for people who are, you know, really into that stuff in terms of the accuracy of like all the forensic technology that's available. You have a situation where you're going after a guy where in an era where, you know, maybe 10, 20 years ago, police officers and investigators didn't have a lot of the things like, you know, the technology at their disposal that they do now. So could you talk, I guess the first part of the question is, anything that you're watching differently now because of the show that you're on? And also
No, I don't think I watch anything differently. I'm not, I don't watch shows on forensics. I do watch television a lot more than I used to, but that really started with Kira being on the clothing. You know, all of a sudden, I realized that, you know, I watched the NBA in 60 minutes, and then all of a sudden I was like, wait a second, there's this whole world out here that I am really, you know, missing. And it was at that point that I decided that I wanted to get involved in television. That's, you know, quite a few years ago. It took me a long time to find something that I really wanted to do. But as a result, you know, like any other medium, if you're working in it, I think you need to consume it so that you can compare and see what else there is and see what works and what doesn't work. And certainly for me, like, it was like, you know, what kind of shows did I want to be on? And I actually had an epiphany when I was you know, I was developing a bunch of shows, and I was looking at shows and reading things and thinking about what I wanted, and all of a sudden I went, what are the shows that I really like? Well, there are shows that are about life and death. And I said to myself, well, if I'm going to be in a show, it's got to be about life and death. That's what I dig, you know, that's what keeps me alive. I mean, that's what feeds me, so that's why this one was it's kind of a no-brainer.
It just seems like there's a little bit of the Hannibal Lecter, Clarice Starling kind of dynamic in this. Is that something you guys are aiming for, to capture a little bit of that dynamic between hero and...
Well, yeah. I mean, I think that the relationship between the two of us is incredibly important to the show. And there's a lot of elements of Joe's character that I aspire to, that I admire, you know what I mean? I mean, the number one thing, which is strange in a way to admit, is that Joe Carroll is a people person, you know, and Ryan Hardy is not. And I think that when he sees him, he sees the way that he affects classrooms and women and you know, the charm that he has, and we explore this down the road as well, even more in subsequent episodes. I kind of go, wow. Yeah, this is a guy I'd like to have a beer with, you know, or there's a guy that I'd like to be a little bit more like.
I don't think I can see the first 10 minutes.
Cool.
So I was in the NYCC within the first 10 minutes. How is it as an actor to work in something that, I mean, it kind of keeps you on edge all the time?
Well, you know, we work at a feverish pace. I'm sure, you know, you cover television, you know that, you know, we shoot an episode which is 43 minutes in 8 days. You know, the average movie is 8 weeks, right? So you're really going 10 times as fast, you know. And is that right? No, anyway, something like that. I don't know what the math would be. And we have to just stay there, stay on the edge of your seat, stay on the edge of everything. I like that, you know, it's cool, it's good. I think it feeds us, and the way that we shoot the show also gives it a lot of energy. Everything's handheld, and we're running, and let's shoot over here, you know.